Hello everyone. Today we will be starting with our paper Resource Geography. So in the beginning we will be looking into over the concept of the discipline. So in today's session we will be dealing about what is a resource, what are the features of a resource, what are the properties a resource should possess, what is resource geography, and how the discipline study is based on. So, in our daily life, we often come across with the word called resource. We always use the word land resource, we use the word soil resource, we use the word water resource. So, every day, at least once a time, we use this word resource. So, what is a resource? In simple words, if you are telling anything or a material, if they satisfy human needs, we call them as a resource. So anything or a material, if they are able to satisfy the needs of our human, we call them as a resource. The word itself has originated from two words, re and source. You know the meaning of the word re. Re is again and again, and source is origin. So the same thing, it applies here, that anything or a material, if they occurs uninterrupted many more times, from there the word resource appeared. And in the study of resource geography, the pioneer person behind it was our Professor Zimmermann. So it's quite important for us to know how Professor Zimmermann has defined resource. According to Professor Zimmermann, the word resource does not refer to a thing or a substance, but to a function which a thing or a substance may perform, or an operation it may take part, namely a function or an operation of attaining a given end or satisfying a want. When you hear this definition, you will feel that it's too long and complicated. Let's break the definition into three parts and make it more simpler. So I'll be dividing this one into three parts. The word resource does not refer to a thing or a substance. So according to Professor Zimmermann, he tells that a resource does not refer to all the things or a substance. We cannot consider all the materials or all the substance as a resource. Go to the second part. But to a function which a thing or a substance may perform, or an operation which it may take part. Here it implies that that substance or the material, based on their performance or the operation, we will consider them as a resource. Okay, that means that the substance should have a function or an operation. And what is that operation? Namely, a function or an operation of attaining a given end or satisfying a want. Here it implies that that function or the performance or the operation that the substance will take part should satisfy our needs or our wants. So it is now easy for us to understand what it is. We cannot consider any material or thing as a resource. If we have to consider, means it should have a function or it should have some performance or operation, and that operation or the function should satisfy our want. I feel now it will be easy for us to understand the definition of Professor Zimmermann. So the word resource does not refer to a thing or a substance. It refers to the function that a substance will take part, and that function should be attaining or should provide a given end, or it should satisfy our want. So, can we call all the material to be a resource? No, that's what Professor Zimmermann told. So, what are the factors for us for making a material to become a resource? Generally, a resource should possess three important factors. Then only a material can become a resource. Which are they? A material should be technically accessible to us. Second, it should be economically feasible for us. And last but not the least, that it is culturally acceptable. Let's look into in detail about all these three factors. Technically accessibility. So, extracting a resource always requires a well-developed technology and scientific innovations. Otherwise, how can we use that material and then how can it become a resource? Here, let's take an example. We know that our world is always facing with the problem of water scarcity. And in our atmosphere, we have free amount of hydrogen and oxygen available throughout. But we also know very well that how the water is being formed when two atoms of hydrogen mixed or combined with one atom of oxygen will provide water. But still we have the water scarcity. Why? Because we don't have that much proper technology to convert this atmospheric hydrogen and oxygen into water at a large scale. So here the technical constraint has persisting. This has made the technical inaccessibility for that material to convert to a resource. The second factor is the economic feasibility. We know that we always think about the cost of production, and this cost of extracting the material to make it as a resource should always be minimal. That means the production cost should not exceed the quality of that substance. We have to consider the quality and the quantity of a resource if we want to start producing it. We have to look into a good economic returns. Consider the case of gold. As we already studied in our geology that gold is a placer deposit, so that it can be found on the basins of river. And in India, we have n number of rivers are there, and traces of gold are available in all the alluvial basins of the river. But still, gold industry is not prominent in our country. Why? Because the quantity is very low and the quality is also less when compared to other regions where we get it. Hence, this will create a higher production cost. So, while we look about our profitability, gold industry is not profitable for our country. Hence, we are not starting that industry till now. So, the economic feasibility or the profit of a product also takes into account for a material to become a resource. Culturally acceptable. Certain resources are not accepted by our society because it may affect our social and cultural values and beliefs. Consider the case of nuclear minerals. We know that our southern coast of India is rich in monazite sands, but still we are not producing it. Why? What may be the reason? Because the nuclear mineral at the same time we tells that it has the largest potentiality as an energy resource, but it can be also used as a weapon that we have already witnessed in many parts of our world in the previous times. So what happens is that every time the society fears that more than using it as an energy resource, if we use such type of resources for other purposes, it may harm our society and our social values and beliefs. So the society and the cultural acceptability is also important for a material to become a resource. So how a material can be converted to a resource? We require three important things here. One is the technology, the other one is the resource, and the third one is that of institution. So what happens here? Here we require the nature. The nature is generally, or the nature is from where the materials are being obtained. And we require the technology to extract those materials from the nature, and in an institution we will be converting these materials into a resource. So we require three factors: nature, technology and institution. And above all, we require our human as a resource for all such activities. It is the human who coordinates all these activity and make it a material as a resource. So the resources are the functions of our activity, without which these materials we cannot consider it as a resource. So shall we able to consider all the material as a resource? No. A material cannot be considered as a resource if it fails to provide satisfaction to human beings. So we can again define our resource as that. Resource is a physical material that constitutes the part of the earth that our people need and value. So once we need and value a material, then only it can become a resource. Consider a small stone or a big stone in front of our house or in front of a road. We cannot consider stone as a resource. It is simply lying there for many years. But once, while we are taking this stone to build our home or for construction purpose, immediately that stone has turned it to become a resource. In this way only, when we value and need a material, they can become a resource. So again, I am reminding you the concept of Zimmerman. He tells that resources are not, they become, and something which is very important. So even if it is more and more precious also, if we are not giving importance to that material cannot become a resource. So if we feel a material to be high significant or utility only, that material can become a resource. So what are the properties of a resource? It is very important for you. A resource generally should possess two important properties. Which are they? Functionability and utility. So a resource creation requires functionability as well as utility. Here I can cite you an example. Consider the case of poison. A poison will always functions. Am I right? It always functions. But are we able to consume it as a food? No. Hence, we can consider that the poison has the ability to function, but it has no utility for the value as a food. So, if it has to become a resource, it should possess function as well as it should be having a utility. The functionability of a material can be actual or potential. Again, it's another matter. Because consider the case of our solar energy. It is having high functionability. It can be used as an energy resource, and that too a highly non-conventional source of energy. At the same time, what happens here in our country? We are not actually utilizing it to a maximum extent. Once we use it, it will become an actual energy. Otherwise, we can consider it as a potential energy. So solar energy in Rajasthan is one example of a potential resource. Sometimes the resource of earlier days may not be considered as a resource of today and vice versa. We have a very good example in our world, which is it till 1850s. The petroleum, we are not considered it as a resource, but now it is the key energy source in the world. We are utilizing the crude oil to the maximum extent in our present century, which we have ignored before 1950s. So now what happens is that material has now become a resource once we started valuing it. So the resource or the importance of a resource always vary from one region to another. What is resource geography? So here we are coming to our topic. Resource geography is a sub-discipline of human geography that describes the concept of resource, its formation, characteristic, distribution, analysis, and conservation. So, earlier, this part of geography was a part of economic geography, but since we start feeling that we have to conserve these type of resources more and more, gradually the subject or the sub-discipline has been delineated from the discipline of economic geography. So, the subject or the discipline mainly deals with what is a resource, how it is formed, what are the characteristic features of such type of resources, or how it is distributed throughout the world, how you can analyze its value and importance, and how to conserve it. So resource geography can be defined as the study of the distribution and the characteristic of resources which distinguish one region from another, with interest focused on utilization, evaluation, conservation and management of resources in relation to environment. So it is very important for us what the subject matter deals with. It deals with the study of the distribution of our resources, how it is distributed throughout the world, what are the characteristic features of such type of resources, how you can find the difference in such resources from one region to another, then how much we are utilizing it. Maybe for sometimes we may be utilizing it less. Consider the case of Arunachal Pradesh, where the water resources is very high, but still they are not utilizing too much for the purpose of energy. So the value also differ from one place to another. How we can evaluate this resource, and what are the conservation and management practices to sustain it for the future environment or generation. So the resource geography encompasses a study of prospecting of natural resources by man, how we are utilizing it, and how we can develop that resource. How the study of resource geography is based on. In the subject of resource geography, we generally study three important factors or three important keywords. They are the resource, resistance and neutral stuff. A resource is what we have already discussed. Now we can move to the topic or the word called resistance. What is a resistance? Resistance is just contrary or opposite to the concept of a resource. I can cite it with an example. We all know that rainfall is a resource for us because water is so much essential to sustain the life on earth. At the same time, in 2018 and 2019, we faced, or the state of Kerala has faced, flood, severe flood. At that time, we cannot consider this flood as a resource. That makes a difference between the word resource and resistance. So, there is an inverse relation between resource and resistance. When such type of resources will have a negative impact on us, we consider that material as a resistance. So the inverse relationship between the resource and resistance is the key issue in the study of resource geography. So in resource geography, we always study about the inverse relationship between the resource and the resistance sometimes that will be provided by this resource. According to Zimmerman, what is a neutral stuff? Anything or a substance that is tangible or measurable. Either a resource is either a resource or neutral stuff. So what is a neutral stuff here? If a substance that does not provide either functionality or utility value, we can consider that material as a neutral stuff. So remember, a substance or a resource we already discussed as it possesses two important properties, functionality and utility. If any one of this feature is not provided or is not satisfied by that material will be considered as a neutral stuff. So it is not necessary that this neutral stuff will remain forever. It can always change over time. Again, we are taking the example of our petroleum here. What is that? Till 1900s or till 1850, which was the major source of our energy? Obviously, we all know that it was coal. Once the coal dominated the energy sector of the world. Why at that time the coal has dominated? Because we humans were ignorant about the functionality and the utility of the crude oil or the petroleum. But presently we understood the importance of the crude oil, how it acts as a key role in the energy sector of the world. So when the petroleum was found out, or the use of petroleum was started in 1959, then the petroleum, which we considered as a neutral stuff, now has become a resource. This is what we have already discussed, that the neutral stuff, it is not necessary that it will be always remain neutral forever. It will change over time. So I am defining the neutral stuff as anything or a process if it restricts a substance to become a resource. We consider it as a neutral stuff. So with this, the concept of resource geography, we are finishing it. I hope you had a nice learning today. If you have any clarifications, you can visit my Edmodo. There the PowerPoint will be available with your class code. Thank you and have a nice day.